Welcome back, everybody. It's Adam Duff from LUCIDPIXUL with our first official art talk of 2018. And I want to apologize in advance. I know it's been a little while since my last art talk, but that is not by any stretch of the imagination because I forgot about you. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I've put a lot of work in behind the scenes to spruce up this channel and make it a lot more fun for everybody, so enjoy. With that said, to celebrate, I thought I would share with you probably one of the most important pieces of advice I'm ever going to share with you. I don't care if you're a bare bones beginner or a seasoned hyper uber pro, this applies to everybody. And this is something that we need to revisit throughout our careers because, in my opinion, it's probably one of the most important things we're ever going to need to focus on to not only become better artists and get the best out of our art, but to be more focused on our career and the whole purpose why we're here in the first place. It's funny. We grew up as artists and we don't necessarily know why we do what we do. We just call it a passion. We sit down and we draw every day. And we don't necessarily question why it is that we do it. And that's very often the reason why when we do start our career, when we do finally make that transition from being somebody who likes to just draw for fun and to become a real professional about it and actually pursue a career in it, we don't necessarily know how to go about it. Now it's something that we have to apply a lot more reasoning behind. This is what I want to tackle today. But to best illustrate what I'm talking about, let's step outside of the visual arts, what we normally talk about on this channel, and look towards acting, look towards the performing arts. Because there are certain personality traits that an actor is expected to have that as visual artists, as concept artists and fantasy illustrators and fine artists and designers and the likes, aren't necessarily expected to be good at. But we are. And this is why I want to talk to you. If we're thinking about acting, and we're thinking about actor-type personalities, we tend to think about more theatrical, more emotive, more expressive people. But that's not to mean that somebody who's very quiet off camera isn't an amazing actor on camera. Look at somebody like Harrison Ford, who plays Han Solo in Indiana Jones. If you see him in an interview, he's the driest guy you've ever seen in your entire life. But when he gets behind a camera, holy smokes, right? He's a superstar. But when we see people who are more expressive in day-to-day life, we tend to look at them and say, I could see them be actors. They have a very theatrical personality. What does theatrical mean? What does expressive mean? What is that suggesting about their personality? Well, it's suggesting that they're more emotional people. People who have higher highs and lower lows, people who are sadder and angrier, people who are more intense with their emotions. We generally tend to attribute the more emotional personality to the performing arts, to acting. So what this means is we look towards a more emotional personality, a more expressive personality to be more of a performing artist. And if I was to do a comic of an artist, of a concept artist or illustrator or cartoonist, you'd more likely see them with a hoodie on, you know, their head like this, sitting there in their room with the door closed and the lights off with their cat and their tea, drinking in their sketchbook, telling everybody to get lost, right? A very antisocial type of personality. In fact, that's the complete opposite. Yes, we are very thoughtful people that need our time and our space to be able to create, but we're not antisocial people, or at least that's not what makes us artists. And this is the very thing that I want to tackle in you today. This is the thing I want to address in you. When you look online, you are bombarded with incredible talent. When I go online and I look at the different artists on ArtStation and Google and all these different sites, I'm sitting there going, wow, wow, wow. It's overwhelming how much amazing talent there is out there. Yet, despite how much the artist in me fanboys over other people's technical skill, there's only a small handful of artists that I really remember. There's only a small handful of artists that I gravitate towards and I idolize and I want to learn from. And it's those artists that I want to talk about today, because there's something about their art that goes beyond just being a pretty picture. There's something about their art that's actually bringing out some kind of an emotion in me. I'll give you a few examples of what I'm talking about. Look at an artist, an animation artist like Pascal Campion, for instance. I'll put the names in the description below so you can go and check them out for yourself if you're not familiar with them. Pascal Campion says he's a self-admitted, not the most technically advanced artist out there. I beg to differ. I think he's got amazing strengths that make his art absolutely beautiful. But when you look at his art, you're not looking at a Da Vinci with his super anatomy and dynamic lighting. Nothing like that at all. It's very simplified. It's very two-dimensional. It looks like he just took a lasso tool and slapped it together. Yet through his use of lighting and composition and color and expression, he manages to capture these very cozy, loving, intimate moments that just make you feel cozy inside. Now, let's completely shift over and look at somebody like Beksiński, somebody who couldn't compare by any stretch of the imagination with Pascal Campion. The type of artwork that he does evokes an emotion, but he's not necessarily just telling you a story. Through his use of form, through his use of texture, he brings out this very raw, honest feeling in his work about humanity in general. Probably one of the reasons why he's my favorite artist of all time. Now let's completely shift the tables again and look at somebody like Rockwell. Through his very carefully planned staging and composition, to his facial expressions and body language. You look at his work and he captures that perfect moment when something happens that makes you feel something endearing, something touching, something funny, something very lighthearted. Although visually and technically they're completely different artists, what does bind them in terms of the quality of their work is that they are very emotionally focused artists. And it's as such that their art goes beyond just being pretty pictures and touches you on a deeper level, something that resonates with you. And because they make you feel something, you remember them. That's the difference between painting pretty pictures and creating art. If you're new to art and you're learning the technical skills you need to be able to produce effective art, then that's your focus right now, and that's what we all need to do, right? We can't just jump into producing art right off the bat. We have to first learn the tools. As a fellow artist, I want you to be aware of two different types of appreciation. Appreciating the technical aspects of somebody else's work because they're really good at something, and being a fan of the emotional aspects of somebody else's work. The way to distinguish between the two is to ask yourself the question, is this a short-term appreciation for something that artist did, or is this a long-term appreciation for a piece of artwork that has had a lasting impact on me throughout my life? When I look back at my life, there are certain artists, there are certain types of art that have left a lasting imprint on me. Things that I'll just never forget. They just sit there in my brain all the time. And the reason why is because they had an emotional connection with me. And that emotional connection burns itself into your brain permanently. And the purer and more focused that emotional expression is, the longer lasting my appreciation for it is. Pixar and Disney said this about their own work. They understand that technology changes. I was watching Monsters, Inc. with my family the other day, and we were laughing at how the hair simulation looked like hair plugs. It looked really good. God! Yet, we laughed, we cried, we were as touched emotionally by that film today as we were then. Because once you get over the whole technical aspect of it, what's left is how it makes you feel, right? And Pixar's aware of this. They know technology changes, but the story will last forever, and the story is what connects us emotionally. So, how do we achieve this in our own art? How do we go about it? Well, we have technical obstacles we have to overcome first, right? We have to learn about anatomy and composition and form and value and color and staging and visual storytelling and blah, 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 blah. All of these things. But it's not enough just to learn them. It's not just something you learn and that's it. Once you've learned that tool and you're comfortable with it, your next step is to start asking yourself the question, how can I use that tool as a form of expression? How can I use forms and values and textures and colors and anatomy and gesture, so on and so forth, to evoke emotion? This is something that all of us as artists need to do. And one of the most important rules to all of this is remember that every single minute little detail in your piece of art plays an emotional role. All of these different things you're focusing on all work together towards a common goal, to make people feel something very specific. So the trick to this is, look at your composition, look at your forms, look at your textures, look at your anatomy, look at your lighting, etc. And ask yourself the question, does this one particular facet of my artwork contribute or take away from the performance? And if it does contribute, is it contributing enough or is it contributing too much? Have I hit that sweet spot? Think of it like a musical band. Everybody's job in a band or an orchestra is to complement and enhance the entire production. If one idiot starts to blow on their trumpet louder than everybody else, the whole song is destroyed. So everybody has to work together as a team to make that song beautiful. The same thing applies to your art. If the story's not about that guy's red t-shirt and you put this big bright red t-shirt, it's going to steal attention away from where you want people to pay attention. Secondly, you don't want anything to be just stuck in that scene for nothing. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Imagine you're watching Lord of the Rings and you watch Bilbo walk out on the beautiful veranda in Lothlorien, and off in the distance there's a beautiful elvish landscape with the mountains and the birds and the golden light and the gorgeous music flowing through the air and the beautiful elvish architecture and the beautiful trees, and he's got his costume and his hair and his prosthetic design and his hairy hobbit feet. Everything's absolutely perfect, and he walks out and you've got this nice soft, very meditative type of vibe walking out on the veranda, and somebody's accidentally left a can of 7-Up sitting on the railing. Illusion? Lost, right? It's gone. That one little element destroyed the illusion. You're taken out of the fantasy and brought back into reality. As an artist, we do this to our own work all the time because we don't necessarily take ownership of everything in our scene, but we should. In a movie, there are many different people responsible for making this production come to life. There's lighting technicians and directors and script writers and sound designers and costume designers and prosthetics designers and set builders and set designers. There's a whole huge team of people all working together to make sure that this production works, to make sure that the emotional pitch is reached to the best of their potential. And if one person screws up, the entire production goes to crap. You've probably seen like a director who completely loses his shit on the guy with the boomstick who accidentally lets the microphone get into the shot, and he loses his shit. And everybody goes, wow, he's such a dick. Well, yes and no, because everybody is playing a part. And if one person screws it up, they're not just screwing up their job, they're screwing up everybody's job. So that director has to make sure that if somebody screws up, they feel total shame for it so they don't do it a second time, because time is money. Well, the same thing comes to your own artwork. Every single facet of your art is somebody doing their job, but you're doing all of these jobs yourself. So you have to be your own director. You have to be able to look at the lighting and ask yourself if the lighting's working, or the color, or the texture, or the forms, or the anatomy, or the pose, or the acting, or anything. Everything on screen is your puppy. It's your production, and you're responsible for everything. So you have to deconstruct everything and ask yourself the question, did I just put a costume on that character for the sake of putting a costume on the character? Or does that costume contribute to the performance? Does that haircut contribute to the performance, or does it take away from it? Does the lighting contribute or take away from it? Does having it there in the first place contribute something to the production, or should I just take it out? Is it just a distraction? If you look at a rough draft and a final draft of a Norman Rockwell painting, you're gonna see that 99% of the time he's refined expressions, he's refined his composition, and very often he gets rid of clutter. All of these different elements in the scene, he gets rid of all of them and just focuses on what's important to tell that story and gets rid of all of the nonsense in there. And as such, when you walk into his painting, you immediately know what you're supposed to feel. You immediately smile, you immediately cry. That was his focus. He knew what it was that he wanted you to feel, and he made sure that he delivered you straight to that without any distractions whatsoever. So that's number one. The second lesson comes from one of my personal favorite actors, Meryl Streep. It was a speech she gave online. I can't remember to whom this speech was given, and I can't remember exactly what it was word for word. It was something along the lines of, empathy is one of the most important emotions a human being can have. It's what makes us relate to each other, and it's what connects us. She wasn't only referring to humanity in general, but this is also something that is a very important rule when it comes to professional acting. I've watched many actors' workshops and interviews, and I've carefully studied what it is that they generally tend to praise in fellow actors. Empathy is probably one of the most important qualities, because in order to be a convincing, authentic actor, you need to be able to completely abandon your own beliefs and completely invest yourself in the beliefs of somebody else, even if you completely can't stand the person that it is that you're supposed to play. I'll give you an example. Look at Edward Norton from American History X, who plays a Nazi skinhead, who kills another person based on the race. Now, if Edward Norton was acting like a Nazi skinhead, then you wouldn't believe it. He would just be somebody who is playing a role, and you would be more focused on him, the actor, than him, the skinhead. You have to be able to pick up on the subtleties in his eyes, in his facial expression, in his body language, in the tone of his voice, and be able to completely and utterly believe that he believes what it is that he's doing. If you lose it for even a split second, that performance is destroyed. In order to do that, he has to find a way to empathize with a Nazi skinhead type of mentality. Once he's off camera, he's back to his old self again. but while he's on camera, he has to be that role. Look at somebody like Charlize Theron in The Monster, another one of my favorite actors and another one of my favorite roles, who plays somebody who's so emotionally battered that she ends up losing her mind and becoming a serial killer. She had to become this woman. She had to live and feel what this woman felt. She had to completely authentically believe everything that she was doing. She had to be able to kill somebody else and authentically believe that she was doing something justified. Let's take all of that and bring it right back to you again. When you're doing a painting, when you're doing an illustration, you have to do the same thing. You need to step outside of who you are and completely invest yourself in the life, in the mind, in the body of the person or people that you are painting. If you don't, your performance is going to be inauthentic. It's going to be very superficial. I see this happen all the time with artists. They have everything in place. The composition's perfect, the value, the color, the atmosphere, it's all set up. And then they say, all right, job done. And I'm sitting there going, no, you're just getting started. That's the same as being on a movie set, and the set builders and the set designers and the audio technicians and the guy with the boom mic and the director and the script writer and all the background actors, and they're all set to go, and the guy runs the smoke machine, and then the actors get up and walk off set. Doesn't make any sense. The performance hasn't even started. When it comes to your art, all of these different things that you have to learn throughout your career are all there as different parts of a production. But once that production's in place, once all of the pieces of the puzzle are in place, then it's time to perform. It's time to trust that everybody knows their job and just focus on your performance. And that performance is an emotional one. You're trying to make an emotional connection between you and your audience. So thank you very much for joining me on my first official art talk of 2018. And again, I'm sorry for the wait, but hopefully it was worth it. Of course, if you're looking to enhance your own knowledge of all these different technical facets of art and then some, you're willing to go and check out my art mentorship. All the information below in the description, as well as the Brush Sauce Theater Art Contest with myself and Tyler Edlin. All of the info below. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. All right? Happy painting, everybody. Take care.